joined in together here. I think we're good. All right, if you're on Facebook and YouTube, hopefully you guys can hear me. And hello to everybody on Instagram. How's my Insta family doing? All right, we've got a lot to get to, but if you know me, you know that I like to start with a quote. So let's jump right in and begin this. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. And this is incredibly important because we all have goals, right? We have goals during the pandemic. We have goals that we're setting for ourselves. The 10-day jumpstart starts tomorrow. I hope you guys are all registered and ready to join in that. We are going to not only lose weight, but feel great, reset unhealthy habits. How many of you have gained a little bit over the quarantine and you're ready to reset and really ready to make some good positive changes? Well, here we go with the 10-day jumpstart. It starts tomorrow, and I'll sketch out a brief sort of outline of that plan, but I hope you guys have all registered and you have your materials, because this is going to be amazing. It's going to be the glimmer of light that we all need when we've been facing so much negativity. So whether you just want to dump the sugar, lose 5 pounds, feel better, have more energy, or simply change your mindset because you're tired of all the fear that's everywhere around us, join me on the 10-day jumpstart. And here's how it all breaks down. You register, you get your downloadables, you join me on the private Facebook group. We're going to be doing daily coaching. I'll be checking in with you guys at 7:30 in the mornings and at 8:30 every night to see how you're doing and to see what your questions are. And we're going to create a community that's going to help us all be successful. So can't wait for all of that. But let's get to the headlines, because as usual, there are many and lots of controversy and lots of debate. And so let's get some of that, and then we'll get to your questions as well. Here's where we stand on our this August 2nd. I can't August and still we definitely have for sure, but again, I think the death rate is sort of staying steady, and even caseload, that it really does seem like it's very widespread. And if you look at the CDC site, it looks like there are cases everywhere, right? Quite honestly, it's like there's an escalating caseload everywhere as well. So that's concerning. When we start to go up, Dr. Burke said very clearly where it is more widespread. There's good news and bad news with all of that. We'll break it down in just a second. But connected to it, how many of you guys saw the viral video of America's Frontline doctors? Did any of you guys have an opportunity to see that? So I thought that was interesting. And while I don't agree with all their points, like they said stuff about not wearing masks and about hydroxychloroquine and some of these other things, I do agree with the need for everyone to be able to speak. And it feels like, your political view weighs very much into your medical view, and those lines are getting blurred. And that's the last thing we want. And I definitely don't want to play into that here on our lives, or when we talk about information. We very much want to talk about what the science is saying, what the recommendations are, and then we want to get away from a lot of the other noise around it. But I do think people have a right to speak and express their opinions, and I don't think it's safe in our culture when there's censorship or when things are shut down. So those are my 2 cents about it. And many of those careers, longstanding careers. And so I don't know that the skewering that they got in the media was necessarily information. I think that's so important. And I'm going to try to continue to do my best for all of you to deliver the news and deliver the information without a biased approach, which is what we all hope journalism would do, right? But I think we're starting to skew a little bit away from that. Hello, Pamela. How are you? It's so good to see your shirt. Reinforce something that I very firmly believe in, and I've been talking over and over again. It is saying that the uses will react in a particular depending on the health and the overall vitality of your immune system. In fact, there is almost some recognition because virus, COVID-19, is actually a cold virus. It's in the family of colds. And who's not had a cold, right? Raise your hand. So there's almost an element of recognition until we were until your immune system realizes this is something different. But that first phase response fights off the virus and increases the viral load. I know we're having some connection issues over there on Facebook and YouTube. I apologize. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll look into it. But thanks for bearing with us. But anyhow, so article in Nature talking about the importance of the immune system. Loved ones, everyone around you will respond to the virus. To some of these articles and research studies, implement distancing correlates with reduction of SARS. Globally, what these research found is that social distancing actually works. So now, as caseloads go up, we do need to be conscious of not going into very crowded areas, not having gatherings of over 50, as some of the guidelines have stated, and being sure to observe that to the best of our ability until the caseload goes down. So just like masks have been shown to reduce transmission, social distancing and hand hygiene continue to be the gold standard. So I think it's so important to continue to adhere to those three main things. So wearing a mask when you're in public settings, social distancing and keeping yourself out of large crowds or out of large groups, and then depending on your community, that's 10 or 50, depending on the caseload. And then last but not least, washing your hands. And I would add the fourth part, which we just talked about, which is the health and wellness of your immune system and making sure you're doing everything you can to protect it and to fight for it. T-cell mediated immunity, which you're probably tired of hearing me talk about over and over again, remember is critical for how we respond to this virus. And it's dependent on a number of different factors. It is dependent on your nutritional health, your gut health, how much sleep you get, your stress levels, your nutrient levels, and so much more. So again, really having that sort of holistic, well-rounded approach to health, I think is so important when we're thinking about fighting this particular virus. All right, moving on from social distance. How many of you guys are social distancing? Everybody doing a good job with that? I hope you are. But moving on from social distancing, let's talk about some other headlines and some other news. Our healthcare workers really at a high level of mental health risk. And in fact, mental health in general is starting to really catch the attention of the researchers because we're having more and more people Google things like disastrous economic impact, financial burden, what will happen if I'm unemployed. These are now common Google searches. And so the concern many people are raising is that when we start to see these things historically, then there's an increased rate down the road of depression, even suicide. And we're seeing it right now in our healthcare workers. Our healthcare workers are really having a tough time. They were less likely to engage in coping, that they're not prepared for the stress. And they suggest that they're at higher risk of negative outcomes right now, including depression. So if you know a healthcare worker who's on the front lines, who's really busting it, taking care of folks, reach out to them. Sometimes we just need to be told we're doing a good job and we've made a difference. And it means the world to us. The majority of us that have gone into healthcare and into medicine did not go in for any other reason other than to help people. So when we get that feedback and we get that reinforcement, wow, we feel amazing and we feel powerful. So keep that in mind. Our healthcare workers at risk, and we need to be really watching and understanding kind of what's happening with them. All right, another news. I don't know if you guys saw this headline where the first few dogs was Buddy, and that raises the question of can you give coronavirus to your dog? Because basically, most of the research is showing is that yes, we can to each other or to other adults. So we do need to be careful once we're diagnosed positive with a positive test that was a little bit interesting as well. And then on a lighter note, so this should be a little bit of happy news, right? Laughter is one of the biggest buffers for stress, and even smiling seem to help. So this is an observational study out of the University of Basel, and it was looking at laughter and saying that people that laughed frequently, stressful events were associated with more minor symptoms of stress. However, the second finding was unexpected. When it came to the interplay between stressful events and the intensity of laughter, there was no correlation with stress symptoms. This could be because people are better at estimating the frequency of their laughter rather than the intensity. So just laugh, have a good time, smile, laugh. We're seeing in this particular study, it makes such a difference when it comes to stress and to stress management. And I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I know every day is uncertain. And for all of you moms out there who are listening to me today, I know that, the whole stress of virtual school and trying to manage those logistics is probably weighing on your mind. But the more we can laugh about it, joke about it, have fun with it, or simply smile, should help us all kind of get through this really difficult phase. So laughter continues to be good medicine. I hope you guys are all laughing away, or maybe laughing at me as I'm trying to explain all these crazy studies, right? Okay, so those are the studies that we've got lined out for you. Let's go to some of your questions. I had a couple of really great questions that I wanted to tackle. Let's stick with one of the ones around COVID for right now. Someone asked me about contact sports and kids. What do I think? I know a lot of sports training camps are in session, baseball, football, basketball, all of those type of things. Some are not, some are canceling. And I do think, again, I think you have to be conscious of the caseload in your community before you make decisions about canceling children's events. So if you have a very high caseload, California, Texas, Florida, the three highest right now, that may not be a good scenario to do a lot of contact sports, right? Because kids can't wear masks. Kid to kid transmission is rare. It is not that common. Kids continue to have a better immune responsiveness, despite what you're seeing in the media and everywhere else. They do seem to have a better immune responsiveness to COVID than adults do. So I don't think their activities and their things should be canceled unless the caseload is escalating in a community, or a community in particular has had a localized outbreak. Then you do want to shut things down for a period of time, and you want to bring everybody back together once you're sure all testing is negative again. But again, remember, so many of us are asymptomatic carriers. Shutting everything down, I think, is simply not a realistic solution. So my answer to that question is look at your community, look at the caseload. If it's escalating or very high within that immediate community, then it may be something to could reconsider stopping. Another approach would simply be testing, test away, test the group, test the team, test every few days. And that way you can shut things down very quickly the minute you get a positive test. So testing and reopening are two very intricately linked concepts. We have to have testing available to be able to reopen a quarantine and crash the economy. It's really important to continue to test if you're suspicious, retest, down the road 10 days later to make sure you're negative, and then reintegrate into society. I think only I had a lot of questions about gut health. How many of you understand the connection between your digestion and your immune system? These two concepts are so intricately linked together. So about 75 to 80% of your immune system is right here in your gut. And if you're not taking good care of your digestive health, and someone asked me, what does that mean? How do I know I'm not taking good care of my digestive health? And we'll get into that in just a second. Then we know that your system, your T cell mediated immunity to work, we need your gut to work. And so all of this kind of comes full circle in a very seamless and holistic way, and it's tied together. Signs that you don't have good digestive health include the following. So first of all, you have trouble digesting your food. You feel full or very bloated all the time or after meals. You don't have a regular and consistent that you may have digestive reflux and signs. This is being joint pain has back to your gut. That's the reason you feel the way you do. So when you're talking about digestive health, yes, we're talking about the gut, but the gut, remember, is ground zero for the rest of the body. So it's so important to pay attention to symptoms of gut health and make sure that you're paying attention. I call those body clues. Like, to deal with that, remember that every food has its own probiotic concentration, right? Has its own like representation of probiotics. So varying your foods, I think, is really important when it comes to supporting your gut and getting good probiotics in. After that, you want a high quality probiotic with about 50 billion or so units of good bacteria in it, mainly lactobacillus or bifidobacteria, because those support your digestive system and immunity indirectly and help with sort of an overall gut health, which, remember, again, is ground zero for the body. Now, somebody asked me a question about kids. Kids need a probiotic. Kids under like between 5 and 10 billion units of them, they can do a probiotic closer to 20 billion, 50 billion units as well. But again, the key strains you want are lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. So keep that in mind. And I hope when you guys are trying to find some of that information. Okay, so that's probiotics. Intermittent fasting, that's another one. Anyone doing intermittent fasting currently? Oh my goodness, I didn't realize you've got all these questions here too. Okay, we'll get to some of these other questions as well. And those of you who've been watching me also know that one of my favorite things in the world is when you guys tell me where you're from. So if you get a second, tell me where you are in the country or in the world. I love bringing all of us together so you all know who your neighbors might be and can reach out to one another as well, or we just become one big global community. So I'll get to some of the questions up here too. But I did get a question about intermittent fasting and hormones. Anybody out there intermittent fasting? I've been doing a lot of intermittent fasting. I actually really like it. You do have to be careful, and that is why I came up with these weight loss types, which we'll talk about in just a second. So intermittent fasting is the principle of really limiting and restricting your eating to a particular time frame, 11 to 8, 12 to 9, whatever it is, and not eating in the interval around that to give the gut some rest, bring insulin levels down, and help to stimulate something called autophagy, AUTOPHAGY, which has actually been shown to be very helpful in anti-aging, prolonging youth, and helping the body detox in a much more efficient manner. So intermittent fasting is something that I love personally, and it's worked for a lot of people. But here are the situations where you don't want to do a lot of consecutive intermittent fasting. And these are also the situations where it will crash your hormones. If you are pregnant, if you are breastfeeding, if you have adrenal fatigue, then you do not need to be doing intermittent fasting. If you are menstruating, those are not days to do intermittent fasting. On the short run, intermittent fasting will work, but if the body perceives that it's always in a chronic starvation state, then it's going to flip that metabolic switch again and try to preserve and hold on to things and then disrupt the hormone cycle. So that's why you can intermittent fast, but you almost want to cycle fast, where you do it for maybe a couple of days. You don't do it on days where you haven't slept through the night, or you're bleeding, or you've been highly stressed, because those are weak adrenal days, right? Those are days that the body's not ready and the body's having a lot of issues. So you don't want to do it on those particular days, but you can do it on days where you've maybe slept better, your energy's in the right place, and you can cycle fast. So the place I always say to begin is to start with maybe a 12-hour fast, right? 12, you can start eating at 7 o'clock in the morning, start eating at 7 o'clock in the morning and cut off at 7 o'clock in the evening. And then you can maybe from a 12-hour go to a 14-hour and then go to a 16-hour and play with it and see how you feel. And it does help if you're someone that's holding a lot of belly fat or you're holding a lot of excess weight. It does help to bring insulin down. It's not magic, but it definitely helps to bring insulin down and helps to lose body fat over time. But you have to factor all those other sort of pieces into account as well. So that's why I actually came up with my weight loss guide. I don't know how many of you have taken the weight loss test. It will help you understand if you are somebody who is a candidate for intermittent fasting, because it sort of screams out the folks that are more adrenal folks that really shouldn't be doing intermittent fasting as their beginning step in their journey, but really more should be focusing on a different style of eating. So those are some of the things that you want to keep in mind. So if you're worried about weight, whoever asked that question about intermittent fasting, if you're worried about weight, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to reset, you can join the 10-day jumpstart, which starts tomorrow, and take the weight loss test. It's on my website at drtaz.com, but go ahead and take that test because it helps you to understand who you are and what the most important pieces of the puzzle might be for you and for a place for you to begin. So hopefully that answers that question on intermittent fasting. Then we had a couple more through here. Let's see. What kind of supplements do you recommend women to take in their 20s? Great question. I'm so glad you asked that. I wish I had this information in my 20s. I really do. If you guys don't know my story, I was a gung-ho person through high school and college and trying to accomplish a whole lot. And I crashed my hormones with all the flip-flopping of medical school and residency, lost my hair. I had PCOS. That's a long story short. But I wish I'd had the formula for me, in my early 20s as I was embarking in my journey. So I find that most young women today really need the B vitamins. They need to be on a methylated B vitamin that supports your mood, it supports your memory, your hormones, hair, skin, so much more. So I'm a strong advocate for going on those B vitamins. I think that's one thing young women should be on for sure. I think secondly, going on a little bit of magnesium at night makes a tremendous difference. Magnesium calms the nervous system down and it helps with sleep and with anxiety. And it's one of the most common micronutrient deficiencies that I see out there. And then third, I would probably say an omega-3, maybe fourth, probiotics, omega-3 to help you fight inflammation as you're in your journey and in your life, and probiotics again to support gut health. So those would be my top four. So B, magnesium at night, probiotics, and omega-3 would be my top four that I think all women should be on if we don't know the details and all the intricacies of their chemistry. So keep that in mind. Noelle wants to be let in. I'll let you in just a minute. Let me get a couple more questions. We got folks from Pennsylvania. Hello, Pennsylvania. Hello, Atlanta, my home. Mexico. Hola. We love Mexico. I miss Mexico. We usually go a couple times a year. Hi there, Fit Healthy Vicky from LA. I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry, I'm ignoring my community over here. Let's see where you guys are from. Any fun places? Montgomery, Alabama. Awesome. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Are there any medical reasons that someone should not wear a mask? Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't been asked that one. Good question. Why you should not wear a mask? I think if you have any kind of nasal obstruction, right? You just had surgery. You have enlarged adenoids, something along those lines where you can't nasal breathe, or you're deprived of oxygen in general, then you really may not wear a mask. It'll be harder for you, to breathe properly, or you can wear it for short periods of time. So I think that's something, that's the situation where I can see somebody not wearing a mask. All right, let's see. Someone's saying they wanted to use my Belly Fix, but they're allergic to the yeast. Yes, you can take that formula apart. So the Belly Fix doesn't have yeast, but it does have fermented probiotics and has a Saccharomyces in it, which is supposed to help kind of bust up candida or an overgrowth of yeast. But if you are having an issue with the Saccharomyces in there, you can just take plain glutamine or plain collagen. That's a way to rebuild your gut lining, and do that instead with just a generic probiotic that doesn't have the Saccharomyces in it. So that might be something to try there. Omega-3 brands, my favorites would be Nordic Naturals and Metagenics. They both have high quality omega-3s. I've been using Nordic Naturals in practice, probably before practice even, but I've been using it for a long time. And I find that they are high quality products, and I still believe in them. Okay, let's see, hair loss. I've got a question. Oh my gosh, that is my story. The hair loss, I'd love to tell you some dramatic story, but at the end of the day, hair loss is what actually got me into the field of integrative and holistic medicine. I had massive amounts of hair growing up, and then with all the stress and everything that happened, through my life, found where this like whole crown was, basically so visible, and patients would look up here instead of looking at me and meeting me in the eye. And that was such a demoralizing experience and really affected my self-esteem. So anyone experiencing hair loss, it's a bigger deal than just not looking good. It really kind of hits you here. But you're telling me that you've been losing so much hair lately. What do you recommend? I'm using Pro B for probiotics. Okay, for those of you losing a lot of hair loss comes from multiple places. It comes from very extreme stress or trauma, disrupted sleep cycles, disordered eating. eating the wrong foods for you, which leave you nutritionally depleted. So usually that leaves you very low in iron or B vitamins or vitamin D or some of the fatty acids, hormone imbalances like your thyroid or estrogen to progesterone ratios or high androgens or circulation issues where there's maybe too much styling or you're doing stuff to the scalp and that's the reason that you're losing a lot of hair. So here's what I suggest. You do need to get your hormones checked. But in the interim, while you're waiting for that and waiting for that to come back, try Lush Locks. It's a formula that's actually patented. It's on the East West Way. You can actually get there through the Dr. Taz site as well. But the direct website is theeastwestway.com. But Lush Locks has amla and foti. Oh, amla is an herb that is the highest, has one of the highest levels of vitamin C in many of the different herbs. Is Indian gooseberry, but it stimulates blood flow to the scalp, so it helps with hair regrowth and prevention of hair loss. And then it has foti, which is a Chinese herb that I think ultimately in there and some other things in there. So you have to be consistent whenever you start on a hair loss regimen, because remember the hair follicle isn't a form of hair shedding. And then a second goal is typically to see hair regrowth. So, but hey, DM me, text me privately if you need to, because that is my story and I know how painful that story is for sure. Okay. So that's hair loss. What can I do for my hair? Gut. For any of you dealing with hair loss, and we'll do. And actually, oh my gosh, I forget, we have a hair loss course on the Dr. Taz site. That might be helpful too. Check out that course. Go to drtaz.com you as well. So check that out. I put some time and energy to that as well. Okay, let's see. So we had a question about hair. What's the best thyroid med? Oh my gosh. COVID or Armor. Okay, here's the deal with thyroid medications. Everyone's story is unique. I've had patients do really well on Synthroid. I've had some do well on Armor, some do well on Nature-Throid. Synthroid is synthetic, right? One way to remember it. And many Synthroid prescriptions have gluten in them. And so if you are if you are gluten sensitive, remember Synthroid may not be the best option for you, or you need to request a gluten-free version of Synthroid, or your T3, your RT3, your TSH, and your antibodies help us make that decision of what is the best thyroid hormone for you. Now, if you head to drtaz.com, on the blog, we just posted another thyroid article. So you may want to take a look at that as an additional resource for that as well. Autoimmune and lots of inflammation, can they use it? I hear mixed reviews about astragalus and inflammation. They can still use it, absolutely. They can use it preventively, and then they can use it up to 3 times a day for 72 hours if they do get sick. There is a lot of conflicting information about astragalus and the immune system and disease. It does not rev up autoimmunity. I keep hearing that room T cell mediated immunity is slowly actually playing a role in cancer management as well. So it's just something I continue to stand behind and believe in. So I think, all right, did I forget any questions? I got folks from all around the world. I think that's amazing. We talked about supplements in your 20s. We talked about mask. It'll be here too. Hang on just a minute. Probiotics. Are there instances for acne patients Yes, the answer is yes. Are there instances for acne patients where probiotics can make acne worse? The answer is yes, because sometimes acne, although the majority of times acne is overgrowth of yeast and candida, sometimes acne is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, where it's an overgrowth of a wrong bacteria. So if you end up taking a probiotic that overgrows a bacteria that you're already having issues with, then yes, it can be problematic. So keep that in mind as well. All right, I think we got it all in. Oh my goodness, so many questions. We'll do this again. So save your questions if I didn't get to them. I'm happy to come back to them. And I'm going to remind you guys again, if you have not joined the 10-day restart, please go ahead and join. I think it'll be incredible to do this together as a community. I'm actually headed over right now to my private Facebook group so I can get them started and make sure they're all prepped for the next few days. But you still have time to join. Click on the link above and join us. And we're gonna jumpstart. We're gonna change the discourse and the dialogue in the world and about ourselves, and make sure we're present and strong and feeling powerful to make the differences and the changes we need to. All right, that's my download for this Sunday night. I hope you guys have an incredible week ahead. I am your resource, so reach out to me if there's anything else that comes up. And I'll be seeing a lot of you over there on my private Facebook group as we navigate our way through the jumpstart. And I have a quote from Hannibal, of all people. I thought that was appropriate. It feels like we're in the middle of a big war of some kind. I don't know what else to call it, but we'll either find a way or we're going to make one. So I am calling on all of you to help us make our own way forward, since we're not really getting the leadership and the support and the news and the encouragement that we may necessarily need. We've got to make the way. So let's make that way forward, united together with good information, strong decisions and science, and leave the noise kind of behind as white noise in the background. Meanwhile, we got to take care of ourselves. So I will see you guys back tomorrow. Stay healthy, stay well, stay super powered. Let me know if you guys have questions. I will talk to you soon. Take care.